Although this primarily concerns RVs, a lot of this information applies to boats as well. There really is not a lot of difference between RV and boat sanitation systems. And before we owned an RV, we owned a boat. We owned a boat for many years, and we learned a lot about keeping the head smelling nice and clean and free from odors. So what I'm going to tell you is some of the things we learned on our boat that we've actually applied to the RV. There are two types of bacteria that can break down sewage, and one of them is good and one of them is bad. Aerobic bacteria requires the presence of oxygen to break down solids. This is a good bacteria, or the beneficial bacteria, because it generally does not produce the stinky foul odors. In fact, you want aerobic bacteria to be present in your system because that is what efficiently breaks down the solids. The second type of bacteria is called anaerobic bacteria. This is bacteria that forms without the presence of oxygen, and it is primarily the bacteria that has the foul, stinky, smelly odor that you do not want. So, you want aerobic bacteria in your holding tank. You do not want anaerobic bacteria in your holding tank. So, how do you ensure that aerobic bacteria is forming in your holding tank and not anaerobic bacteria? The number one way is to make sure you have venting in your tank. When your tank is vented, oxygen can get into the holding tank, and then that will allow aerobic bacteria to form. If the venting is inadequate or if it's clogged, then anaerobic bacteria will form because there is no oxygen for the aerobic bacteria to form. And yes, if there's oxygen available, aerobic bacteria will form and anaerobic bacteria will not form. The only time anaerobic bacteria forms is if there is no oxygen present. Okay, here's my top 10 tips for your boat or RV to keep your toilet or head from having odors. Tip number 1. With the exception of biodegradable RV toilet paper, never put anything in the toilet that has not gone through you first. Remember, there are two types of bacteria, aerobic and anaerobic. We don't want to put any grease, vegetable oil, or anything in the toilet that may cause the production of anaerobic bacteria, because that's where we're going to get the stinky. Tip number 2, always use some kind of RV toilet treatment. You can either use stuff like this TST, which I like, or any one of the enzyme ones. Either one will really work. Every time that you flush your holding tank, just put a packet in and flush the packet. Tip number 3, always turn off the vent fan before using the toilet. If the vent fan is on, it's just going to suck odors from the toilet up into the bathroom, and you don't want that. Tip number 4, learn how to flush your toilet properly. Flush your toilet using whatever mechanism that requires to use it. Then, depressing halfway, make sure you have what we like to call a water plug in the toilet. Now, it doesn't have to be that deep so that it sloshes around when you're driving down the road, but this plug will keep any odors from seeping through the toilet. Tip number 5, if you're going to be away from your RV for a while, for say a week or two, throw in an Effordent tablet or two into your what we call a water plug. It will just turn this whole bathroom into a nice smelling bathroom. Tip number 6, always maintain the integrity of your seals and replace them if necessary. If your toilet will not hold water, you need to replace the seals. The seals with the water on top is one of the methods that is used to keep odors from coming into your bathroom. Tip number 7, always wait until you're 2/3 full before emptying the black water tank. The reason for this is if it's not full enough, everything will not come out, and you need a little bit of water in there also to allow for proper breakdown. By the same token, don't wait until it's overflowing either, because then enough air may not be able to get into the holding tank to keep the aerobic bacteria healthy. So it all depends on how long you're going to be between uses, but try to flush your holding tank whenever possible between 2/3 and full. Tip number 8. Use a mechanism to rinse out your holding tank when you're done. That will keep everything clean and also help keep odors down. Tip number 9. Clean the vent of all bugs and things. Spiders especially like to get into there. Tip number 10. Consider installing a vent such as the Siphon 360, which is a upgraded vent that actually helps pull odors out of the holding tank. I've installed one of these on my RV, and I have to tell you, it really works. I mean, I have not had any odor problems at all with using this device. It's about 30 bucks, you know, so it is a little bit on the pricey side. However, if it works, it's well worth the $30, that's for sure. So if you've not come away with anything else in this discussion, I hope you at least understand that it is aerobic bacteria that you want to have in your RV's holding tank and not anaerobic bacteria. And the best way to do that is make sure you have proper venting. That's the number one reason that you have, in my opinion, smelly toilets, is that you do not have adequate ventilation, or there's something wrong with the system, or you've thrown something in there that is oil slicking over the holding tank or one of those kind of things. So just keep that in mind. If you learn nothing else from this, make sure you have proper venting in your system.